For fans of the hit TV show The X-Files, or really anyone who believes extraterrestrials may be visiting us, the New York Times revealed a few days ago that the Pentagon really did have an X-Files-like division. It was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program and was active from 2005 to 2012 at a cost of $22 million taxpayer dollars. Among other things, the program looked into reports of UFO sightings, including this one from 2004, in which two Navy pilots spotted something very unusual while in flight off the coast of San Diego. This newly released video shows what they saw, along with their reaction.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Well, no official explanation has yet been offered about that close encounter. And as with any story that might involve aliens, the Pentagon UFO program includes some shadowy figures and a lot of unsolved mysteries. And joining us tonight to talk about what they believe are Mark Hammergren, an astronomer at the Adler Planetarium, and Mark O'Connell, a professor of screenwriting at DePaul University and a former certified UFO inspector for the Illinois State chapter of the Mutual UFO Network. Marks, thank you both for being here tonight. Mark Hammergren, are you surprised to find out that the Pentagon had this X-Files type of program, and still might have it?
You know, I really was, because the Pentagon had been through all of this already for a couple decades, a long, long time ago, and they'd kind of dispensed with that. So the official word was they hadn't been doing any of this work.
Well, that was the official word, but who knows if they had, and who knows really if it was disbanded in 2012. There's some doubt about that. But are you pleased that they're looking into these UFO sightings?
There's two parts to the story, really. The first is, yeah, I'm pleased that somebody is collecting reports on these objects, and there are some private organizations doing wonderful work in that regards. You know, we have to pay attention to it, right? But for the government to have a secret Defense Department program taking taxpayer dollars and giving them to a private corporation to do this kind of work in the black budget, it's you need oversight for this kind of thing.
So you need clarity on these kinds of things, and openness is what you're saying. Mark O'Connell, first of all, tell us what it takes to become a certified UFO inspector.
Well, you have to read the UFO Inspector Handbook and then take a quiz. It's just that simple. You don't need a PhD, you don't need any scientific training.
All right, so tell us how you went about investigating these things, and did you ever find any?
Well, I like to write about UFOs, and I was writing a UFO blog at the time and thought that if I went through the program of becoming certified as a UFO investigator and then started meeting UFO witnesses face to face, it would help with my writing. I'd have a better understanding of what sort of person reports a UFO sighting, how it changes their way of thinking, how it affects their lives. And it was all very interesting from that standpoint.
So you used it mostly for your fiction writing, is that right? Or
also for my book, The Close Encounters Man. It's a nonfiction book about the UFO, the history of the UFO phenomenon.
So do you believe that these sightings have legitimacy and that the Pentagon should have been looking for possible aliens visiting us?
I believe that many of the events have validity. I believe that many of the events actually represent some aspect of reality that we don't understand as of yet. Do I think the Air Force should be studying it? It depends on what their objective is. In this case, this new study group that was revealed in the New York Times over the weekend, the name of the group gives us a clue: aerial threats. They're clearly looking at UFOs as a potential threat to our security. So on that level, yes, I understand. That is the Air Force's job, to keep our skies safe and clear from threats. It's hard to tell what else they may have been looking for, though, because this news report doesn't really fill in a whole lot of details.
There's a lot of information that has not yet been declassified. So, Mark Hammergren, when you see this video that the pilots took from what looks like a dash cam from one of their planes, and as a man of science and physics, how do you interpret this? Could they be seeing something that has a perfectly logical explanation?
Well, you always have to think about that, right? And so I looked into the optical design of the instrument that was used to make this. And so there are things like an angled window and some beam splitters in the path, and those can introduce internal reflections, lens flares, that kind of thing.
So they actually described it as a long tic-tac flying at an exorbitant speed, and then it shifted rapidly. You know,
it's hard to connect the eyewitness testimony to these individual videos, and I'm not sure that they correspond. You know, the tic-tac report corresponds with this one or that one. It's really hard to back that out from what we've seen so far.
So it could have a perfectly logical explanation that we haven't been told yet.
I think so. I haven't seen any unusual, remarkable maneuvering in these videos.
Mark O'Connell, Mark Hammergren talked about some of this money that was allocated for this program and who it went to. And the principal individual that it went to is this man called Robert Bigelow, and he's a billionaire, and he's a friend of former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who also apparently had an interest in UFOs, and a lot of the money went to this gentleman who has an aerospace industry. What can you tell us about him, what you know, and whether he's qualified to be investigating these kinds of things?
I have some doubts about that. At the same time that he's reputed to have been involved in this government program, he was also involved in the organization we just spoke about, the Mutual UFO Network. He forged a deal with MUFON in which he would finance UFO investigations on the condition that if any physical evidence or technology was ever discovered, he would retain full ownership of it. So my question is, did he have a similar deal with the government when he was involved in this $22 million project, where he would get to keep whatever technology might be discovered? That's a troubling question.
So do you think that calls into question the entire legitimacy of this program?
Yes, I do.
So when there was another individual involved in this who has some mystery about him, and that's Luis Elizondo, who helmed this project at the Pentagon. So he was actually hired at the Pentagon and had an office there on the 5th floor. This is Luis Elizondo. The program stopped getting funding allegedly in 2012, but he didn't leave the program until earlier this year, and that's when this story started to leak out. Do you believe that, from what you've heard, Mark Hammergren, that this individual has what he says, information that we may not be alone?
You know, there's a really big leap from saying something that we see in the sky is unexplainable to saying that it's automatically aliens. And nothing I've seen that's been released so far indicates that we have anything that's convincing proof. And, you know, as a scientist, we just have to have evidence, and I haven't seen that yet.
You're a sky watcher. You look at the sky often at night. Have you ever seen anything that you thought, that's odd?
You know,
that's close to Earth, not, you know, out in the outer space.
So before I became a professional astronomer, I was an amateur astronomer. So a lot of astronomers don't spend much time out under the night sky. I have. And I've been trying to see, you know, aliens and UFOs since I was a kid. I saw an incident once when I was at an observatory in eastern Washington. I saw some lights flicker on the horizon, one by one, pop into a view. I thought, wow, finally, this is happening. It turned out there was artillery flares from a distant army base. I could hear the thunder of the artillery minutes later.
So, Mark O'Connell, do you think that the government is hiding anything from us? I mean, these stories go back decades now and really started surfacing after World War II, when aviation turned from propellers to jet engines, and things got faster and lights appeared in the sky. Do you think that there's legitimate either information or items that the government has not revealed to us?
I think it's very possible that there has been a government cover-up at various points in the past few decades, but you can cover up knowing something, or you can cover up not knowing something. And I think it's just as likely that the Air Force is covering up not knowing anything.
Why would they do that?
Because they can't afford to look incompetent. They can't admit to the public that they don't know what these things are in our sky. It's their only job is keeping our sky safe. And if these things are appearing at will in our skies, and the Air Force can't identify them, can't understand them, can't chase them down, it raises a lot of questions.
Is there something that you see in that video that you think you can explain?
No, but I do have some problems with the video. In the very first few seconds of the video, you hear a voice on camera saying, "I see a whole fleet of them." I only see one object. That's the first thing that troubles me.
Well, what else troubles you about this? Is it that they were able to lock on it even though it was going at an allegedly exorbitant speed?
Yes, that's the other thing. That's the other thing that I have questions about. That they are very firmly locked on that object.
But now, like I said, the program allegedly was disbanded in 2012 when the funding ended, but Luis Elizondo said that he was still working on it when he left in October. Do you believe, Mark Hammergren, that this should continue, probably not as dark as it has up until now, but with more information and more public review?
Well, as far as Air Force and other military sightings like this, they should be processed through the normal procedures that must be in place. You encounter a Russian aircraft, surely that must be reported somewhere. So I don't see the need for a separate, secret department to study these kinds of sightings. Just get it out there.
Mark O'Connell, when I asked you about your qualifications for being a UFO inspector, I certainly did not mean that in any other way than seriously, but do you think that people take these incidents and this story and this whole concept of UFOs too lightly, that it should be taken more seriously?
I think there's enough material there to give us reason to study it seriously, if not as a scientific problem, then as a social problem. I've come a long way in the course of my researches over the last few years from being concerned about what are they to these days being more concerned about what do they mean. I think that's a more meaningful thing to be studying about UFOs.
Mark Hammergren, should there be a contingency plan for a possible UFO visit from outer space?
Yes, but what exactly does that mean, you know? Should we have procedures in place in case something lands on the White House lawn? Yeah, there already are.
Why are they always landing on the White House lawn is what I want to know. There's a whole lot bigger and better lawns out there. But do you believe, yes, that there should be at least some thought that it should not be taken lightly or dismissed?
Absolutely. I think there should be some thought to it, just in case.
And Mark O'Connell, you remain very active in this community to a certain extent. You have a blog called High Strangeness. Can you tell us about that?
About 5 years ago, I was looking for a fun writing project, more or less to entertain myself. A friend suggested that I start blogging, and I picked UFOs. It was something I'd been interested in for a very long time, really since I was a little boy. And it just seemed like this is a topic that I could write endlessly about for weeks and months and years, which has proven to be the case.
And here in Illinois, is there a large community, and are there credible sightings here in Illinois?
There's been one very credible sighting that I was talking to Mark about before the show. A sighting at O'Hare in, I believe, 2009, in which a large number of United Airlines ground crew saw a spherical object hovering above the airport, and then all at once it shot straight up through the sky, and according to reports, left a perfectly circular hole in the cloud cover, as if a cookie cutter had just punched a hole in the clouds. My friend Mark here was explaining to me in the green room, however, that there's evidence that that was actually an atmospheric phenomenon that could explain the whole thing.
So, take everything with a grain of salt, but you say, try to believe.
Yes.
Mark Hammergren and Mark O'Connell, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'd like to know whether you think the federal government should continue investigating reports of UFOs. Go to our website to give us your thoughts.